Welcome on to the Tortillas and Takes podcast. You are on once again with your boy, Albie Shore, and Texas Tech men's basketball team made us proud this weekend. Right? This is a team that we've questioned just how good they are, whether they'll be able to make it work. And this Saturday against the Arizona Wildcats, right, the big bad wolves of the Pacific, came in town and they got punked like some little dogs. To talk about that weekend that was and recap the Arizona game as well as look ahead to a couple more games. We got the People's Champ, Jeremy Gillen. What's up, Jeremy?
What's up, Albie? Oh man, I'm stoked. And we talked about it in the chat. This was a really good one to win because of some comments we made to some Arizona students along the way when we went down to Tucson to watch the football team play. We're like, Texas Tech basketball team is not too bad either. And like, basketball, y'all don't know anything about basketball. Threw up in the bushes, turned around. We're gonna whip you. We're gonna wax you. All right, cool. We'll see, man. We'll see. Yep. Wonder what those guys are up to.
Yeah, so that was very interesting. Is for the listeners of the pod know, Jeremy and I did get a chance to go to Tucson for the football game, and that was very much one of the, I think Arizona fans were like, "Hey, we think we have at the time, we think we have a good football team. We think we're going to beat you today." But basketball, y'all don't even deserve to. Like, we're not even having this conversation. We're a basketball school. Y'all don't even heard the word basketball because again, people that don't know anything still believe that Texas Tech does not know anything about basketball. I thought we've been over this for the past 10 years. By now, I thought we would have been past this, but apparently we weren't. And in Arizona, those guys are like, "Yeah, we're gonna destroy you in basketball." And I'm like, relax. Y'all don't even know. And sure enough, Arizona's getting not just us, but a big brunt of what Big 12 basketball has to offer. So also to talk about this Arizona Wildcats Texas Tech basketball game this past weekend, we got the Red expert himself, Joe Lopez. What's going on, Joe?
Albert. Texas Tech doing some feline feasting this week in the last couple of games, and we add the Bearcats to that list on Tuesday. So, yeah, great win. The crowd and the excitement, me and Jeremy both talked about it in the preview pod that we needed the Tech students to come in, show out, be loud, and it really showed on TV and how loud it was in that place at certain points of the game. So it really helped us out, helped pushing the team out for a victory on Saturday.
So, I mean, let's talk about, y'all talked about in the last episode how ugly Tech played against K-State. All right, Tech played pretty ugly against K-State. And so I think this game against a different Wildcat team, it was important for Tech to really, it's almost as if McCaslin really got in their butts after that quote unquote win against K-State and said, we got to play a better brand of basketball, because I think in the first half, they did, right? They didn't necessarily come out to a big lead or start, whooping up on the team like they did against Iowa State. It was just establish a lead and then maintain that established lead all throughout the first half. Joe, what do you think about that first half performance by the team?
Defensive wise, I mean, that's something you could kind of hang your hat on. It was as good as defense as you could play against a team that was that hot coming into Lubbock. So it seemed like what had happened in Manhattan, then the transition back over to Lubbock, a lot of players, took some accountability for how poor they played in Manhattan, and they brought it over. We called it that, the JT Toppin deal wasn't probably going to last. The Chance McMillan deal is probably not going to last. Just these were like fluke games that they had there in Manhattan. And, they came out and they showed out against Arizona. So me personally, I really liked what I saw from this basketball team. And it seems, as far as on a defense side, maybe not so much on the offensive side right now, but on the defensive side of the ball right now, this team seems to be playing as cohesive as a unit as we've seen all season. And it's only going to get better, or at least that's the hope, trying to, I don't remember what Jeremy's mug says. I think it says stacking success on it or something like that. But yeah, continue that trend, moving forward on the defensive end. And then hopefully the offense, steadily picks it up from there.
Yeah, so Jeremy, I mean, if we think about it, so last game against Kansas State, the defense played well. At the same time, I would argue that it was a lot of bad offense from Kansas State side and from Texas Tech side. I think in the first half, especially, one of the things we saw was that it was a really good defensive effort. We held Arizona. We held Arizona only 26 points in that first half. And it wasn't just bad offense, or it was from Arizona's side. It was really staunch defense contributing and carrying over from what we saw in Manhattan. But the flip side of it was the offense was a lot more efficient. What did you think about how the Texas Tech played in that first half?
Yeah, worlds apart. And a lot of that immediately came from JT Toppin stepping on and being back to his normal self. Federico, and I tweeted it at the very beginning that, man, if Toppin's going to be out this game, Federico's going to have to step up. And I mean, electric. That guy has really leaned into the role, really gotten a lot more active under the basket, and seems a lot more fluid in this offensive kind of rotation. But seeing Toppin come back in, being aggressive under the basket, I think everybody offensively kind of took a breath of relief. Like, it's not on me. And something that when the Kansas State game for me, with Toppin being so limited and everybody else kind of just, okay, well, how are we going to play this? Kind of bounce it around. And Kansas State isn't a team that should be holding your offense back, but it did. And having Toppin back in, immediate difference, right? We didn't take off in the first half by any means, but we were playing very efficiently. It wasn't this like, we have to make it happen this possession. We trust our defensive guys. We've got home court advantage. I think I even tweeted it, or I wanted to, that I felt more comfortable that the game was closer, because in Iowa State, we blew them out early. And it was like, oh, we're sailing away. We're about to wax you by 40. And Iowa State crawled back. We couldn't keep that pace, and they crawled back and then got the win in overtime. The fact that we kept it closer against Arizona, it didn't feel like we were outpacing ourselves. It felt like we were controlling the clock, which it was just much different than the past two games have been.
No, absolutely. I think it's a really great point, right? Against Iowa State, we came out hot and heavy, and eventually that cooled off and allowed Iowa State to get back in the game. To where this one, we just steadily kept good pace all throughout that first half. I think as we moved into the second half, though, right, we carried a 7-point lead at halftime, looking good, feeling good, right? Everything's all great. We're doing a great job. Up until problem, Joe, is that Arizona put up a 3-pointer to start the second half, and then another basket right after that, and then another basket, a couple more made free throws. Started the half on a 7-0 run right out the gate. And so right out the gate, that 7-point lead that you had against Arizona is gone. It's a tie game. Like 2 minutes into the second half, it's a tie game. And it's like, oh, we spent 20 minutes building up this lead at a good pace, keeping some structure, and Arizona's tied it up just like that. And so now, from that moment on, 33-33, it's a dogfight. What were your thoughts as we started the second half out?
I still thought the defensive intensity was high up there. Like, I didn't think there was like any drop off or fall off. We had a couple good looks there to where we would have made, I believe it was Darian Williams took the first one, or it was JT Toppin in that second half. And then Christian Anderson, who started the second half on the court, which is also pretty interesting to see, which we could talk about later. But we missed 2 shots early in the second half as well, which were good looks. They just didn't drop for us, and they came down and put some points on the board. But like I said, the defensive intensity was high up there. I didn't see a whole lot. Like, I wasn't like, oh crap, here we go again. I just felt personally that we were going to weather that storm, which we did. And McCaslin also didn't take a weird timeout in there as well. He just kind of let it play out.
The Phil Jackson move. Phil Jackson popularized that by, when you're going through a bad stretch, not calling the timeout, letting your team work through it, letting your team figure it out. And we did figure it out, right? Almost immediately after tying that game up, Tech went on our own 5-0 run to push it back out. And so from there, it was back to that same steady pace of 5-point lead, 6-point lead, 5-point lead, 4-point lead, 6-point lead, and just kind of steadying it up until, once again, Arizona gets within 1, 53-52 with only 7 minutes to go. Jeremy, as the second half was going through, and we're still in a arm's length but a dogfight at the same time, what were your thoughts?
I picked us to lose this game, so it was coming to fruition for
Bet
me.
you did.
I thought, well, especially when Arizona tied it up so quickly out of the half, I think we kind of maybe embarrassed them where they're like, you know what? I don't know why we're letting Texas Tech hang around. And so I had that vibe that they were going to come out and start shooting really well and play with like a 5-0 team in conference. And so for it to be so deadlocked towards the end, I was just like, okay, we're going to have to limit. We got to continue to limit turnovers because the turnovers are what's going to kill us. And please, God, make your free throws, right? And so out of those two, and I think it was those two things that I said, we're going to lose the game because we're just going to, we're not going to fix the issues in that short of a time span. So at that point, it was playing out as I expected. I was still a little bit. I had West Texas cardiac arrest, game as it is. So just kind of waiting for the disappointment. But I was like, trying to fight that urge to think that we have a chance.
So let me tell you all this real quick. So Texas Tech was up 53-52. Arizona had just made a bucket to make it a 1-point game. 7 minutes and 34 seconds left to go. For the last 7 minutes and 34 seconds, Arizona scored 2 points for the rest of the game. That was it. 7 minutes and 34 seconds. Arizona scored a grand total of 2 points for the rest of that game. And those 2 points came with 5 minutes and 16 seconds to go. So for the last 5 minutes of the game, they did not score a single point. So at 52-53, Texas Tech goes on a 17 to 2 run to completely win the game, to wipe it out. One of the best finishes I've seen Texas Tech do in the McCown era. One of the best finishes I've seen against a good Arizona team. Right? And before I pass it over to you, Joe, this is an Arizona team that was getting. I know they were unranked, but they were getting votes in both the media and coaches poll. This is an Arizona team that was on a 7-game win streak, undefeated in Big 12, right? Just beat 3 ranked Big 12 teams in Cincinnati, West Virginia, and Baylor, right? So this is not some Arizona team that you say, oh, well, Arizona's not doing well this year. They were stacking success, right? And it was looking like the Arizona team that we all thought was going to be there previously. That's what we came into. And with 7 minutes and 34 seconds to go, this basketball team said enough is effing enough and went on a 72 run. What did you think about that one, Joe?
It's amazing because they weren't getting many shots up. If they were getting a shot up, it was contested. We were holding them towards the latter part of the shot clock. Everything about our defense for 2 consecutive games, because I believe we held Kansas State in the last 5 minutes of that game scoreless to close out that game as well. So for 2 consecutive games, the last 5 minutes of the game, our defense totally locks in and shuts down opposing offenses, no matter how good or bad they are. Kansas State's not quite as prolific as an Arizona Wildcat basketball team as far as scoring goes, but they could put points up there. But you have a Caleb Love, you have a KJ Lewis, you have a Waka, all these other guys that could put points on the board, and you're shutting them down for 5 minutes straight. That goes a lot to show for what this Texas Tech defense did and what changes McCasland has made over the course of the last 2 games in those last 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and this is not one of those games also. And I think one thing to call out is that Texas Tech only shot 36% from the field, right? We only shot 26%. We only had 6 of 23 from the 3-point line. But this is why one of the biggest worries I had as this season went on is that our defense just hasn't been there. The defense has been where we've struggled. And as great as the offense has shown it can be at times, when our offense is predicated on shots, it's predicated on shot making. And that's great and all, but ask the Boston Celtics if that's going this year. Last year, they won a championship. This year, they're losing games they probably shouldn't be losing. They wouldn't have lost last year because the shots aren't falling the same way, right? But defense carries. That's the thing. And so in this game, you can shoot 36% from the field, and you can go 6 of 23 when you hold Arizona to 15 missed 3-point shots. When you hold Arizona to 31% from the field, then you can do all the things that we're talking about, right? And it's also not like, we forced a lot of turnovers against K-State. Didn't happen the same against Arizona. Arizona took care of the ball. We actually lost a turnover battle in this one, right? But that staunch defense didn't matter. Jeremy, what did you think about the end of this game?
Elite. We talked about how we've had a hard time putting anybody away this season. Like anybody that's worth the dang. It's been let's let them hang around and then till the end and make it really stressful. We can't put anybody away. And then when we put away Kansas State, we couldn't get a basket. We couldn't buy a basket for our own self. So to see us put away a quality opponent like Arizona, a team that loves to shoot, is good at shooting, and still put up points. I mean, it was about the same script as the Kansas State game, about the 5.5 minute area. You're like, okay, they made their last bucket and then pretty much going to keep you there. But we, from 57 to ended up being 70. So what, 17 points or whatever. I mean, that's a recipe for success every time. Like if you're going to hold an opponent scoreless for 5 minutes and you're still putting up points, that is the definition of you putting the foot on their neck, like however you want to phrase it. Like that's what good basketball teams do to regular opponents. And that's what great basketball teams do to good opponents. So like this game, the way that this ended up playing out, it shows that like this program, like this team that McCasland's put together, people were very iffy about this team, but this team like embarrassed Arizona at the end, which is not an easy team to embarrass. Right. And so it's like, that is an impressive victory. And like you said, Albie, like people were, pundits from all over the nation were like, "Hey, Texas Tech, let's tweet about Texas Tech now," because like this is something that like turns heads. Like Arizona was seen as the incumbent, like, hey, they're coming in and they're probably gonna make a run for the Big 12 title. Like they will probably, because they're that good. Yeah. And yeah, their season's been up and down, but like it's a team that also was undefeated in conference, so they were playing the script already. So until they met Texas Tech, and now we kind of have to readjust the way we're thinking about our own team. Like, yeah, maybe this is a tournament team.
Well, it wasn't just a win. It was a like, not, I wasn't dominant, but it was a strong win, right? It was a strong, very strong win. Not a win that when you finish the game, you're like, oh, it wasn't in doubt, right? And a question for y'all is Arizona the Utah of men's basketball? Right? The program that comes in walking with a big stick, like, yeah, we in this mini conference now, and then they feel, they end up feeling like, ooh. Now, mind you, they're 5-1 still, so I'm not going to necessarily say they're Utah. They're going to end up being one of the worst teams in the conference, like Utah was. But they definitely were humbled a little bit, I think, in this Texas Tech game by a team that ain't too shabby. Like Texas Tech, I'm looking at this right now. Tech, we're 12th in the country in KenPom right now. I know we're not ranked, even though we got more ranks, more votes in the media poll this week, and I do think a couple more wins will be ranked next week. But no, we're not ranked. But KenPom has us 12th. CBB Analytics has us as the number one offensive rated team in the conference. This is a team that now, with the last two outings, we were laughing about the defensive rating before. Our defensive rating is now 35th via KenPom. All right, so. Joe, this is a team that's on the up and up after two back-to-back victories against the Wildcats.
And now we get Bearcats next. So it's like, it's just one of those things. This is where you want to see this team at least starting to continue that trajectory up. We had the tough loss against Central Florida. We had the tough loss against Iowa State, which, we easily could have probably won either one of those games at any point in time, but I think that actually helped this team to move forward, to see what they needed to fix on their own end, especially on the defensive side, put teams away whenever the time is right, not making it easy for anybody to come back, and then actually just getting your very first win at home in Big 12 play. So a lot of basketball left. We're 6 games in, so 14 left to go. So we got to clean up what we can, especially against these lower end teams in the Big 12. But we'll get into that, as those games come up.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, really good defense on this. Texas Tech also 50 rebounds in this game, including 16 offensive rebounds. Another big one there for the Red Raiders. Individually, um, individually, JT Toppin, great game, 20 points, 16 rebounds from JT Toppin. I think Toppin really showed himself. But whenever it's time for him to go to the NBA, he's going to show this tape and be like, I was killing them boys, right? 20 points, 16 rebounds in this one. Chance McMillan, 14 points in this one as well. Elijah Hawkins, once again, showing his purpose as a point guard. 9 assists, 0 turnover. When was the last time Elijah Hawkins even had a turnover? Right, knock on wood. But he played great, as well as Christian Anderson off the bench. 10 points in this game, and then like Jeremy was mentioning, Federico with 8 points, 8 rebounds himself. So overall, a lot of, I think, a well balanced game in this one. Kerwin Walton started for some odd reason in this game. Kerwin Walton really throws these starting lineup projections off because you're like, he started but only played like 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Why did he start? And I'm at the point where I don't really. Is this just to like? Because let's be real, Christian Anderson's a starter. Like, I didn't matter. That's why I never understood why players get so caught up on who starts and who doesn't. Like, who's getting the playing time? Christian Anderson's like, you ain't got to start me. Okay, I can start the game off the bench. If you want to just first time out, we can sub out. That's fine by me. Okay, it's almost like McCaslin made a promise to Kerwin that he would start every game, and then they're like, all right, enough of this. All right, come sit down. We're at the first. We're at the first TV timeout. Your contract, my obligation is done. CA, get up in there. That's probably going to get me blocked by a few players. Anyways, anything else you want to say about this game, Joe?
Just a stat that, like I said, that will probably get lost in the box scores. That Tech only allowed 5-second chance points to Arizona in the entire game, and that's massive, especially what we showed on the boards there.
Awesome.
You know, especially you limit that. You know, it's tough for any kind of team to stay close. So that was massive. The turnover battle, yeah, we lost, but we kept it under 10, or I think right at 10 for the game. So everything about the game was great. Like I said, just a steady pace. It seemed like we were at our pace the entire game, or at least a majority of it. And, you know, that defense is starting to show up and show out, especially whenever those last 5 minutes of the game is, for sure.
Absolutely. Jeremy, what else you got to say about the game?
Yeah, Joe kind of hit it right on the nose there. I think it's big seeing Toppin play the way that he did after, you know, going down and then playing kind of only 15 minutes in Kansas State, to have him really integrated in to this game. But also Federico equally kind of, I mean, they're both playing on the court at the same time. That's an established, like that's a dominating presence around the basket if you have both those guys on the court at the same time, and the rebounds do show that. Something that we're not going to get a lot of love for yet, but I think we'll start to value a little bit more down the stretch. Elijah Hawkins is quietly becoming like one of the most powerful assists, or like his primary ball handling abilities are not going to be valued enough just yet. Right now, I think 46 assists and like 5 turnovers. Absurd in conference play.
That's
Absurd.
crazy.
If he maintains that pace, which, like, who knows, that's like that's a premier performance that isn't going to give as much love as, because you've got great players on this team. But like Elijah Hawkins, man, stand up. I'm gonna give you applause, right, man? That fantastic work to be able to facilitate. And a lot of the reason we have a good offense is because, boy, howdy, let me tell you, Elijah Hawkins is a great facilitator and has gotten a lot of these guys clean looks, you know, by drawing in opponents. So it's a lot to like about Texas Tech basketball right now.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing I think with Elijah Hawkins is that you have a point guard that can just control everything. And how many years we talk about how, man, only we had a point guard. We really need a point guard to be able to handle all this. Like, no matter what, worst come to worst, we know I put the ball in Hawkins' hands. He's put honestly, it's actually crazy. Put the ball in him or Darren Williams' hands, we'll be okay. I'm comfortable. Either one of those two guys. Hell, well, I was gonna say Chance McMillan. I know Chance McMillan gonna get up a shot. That's how I put it like that. Chance McMillan, Christian Anderson. I know y'all gonna get up a shot. Will I like the shot? Maybe not. But will the shot probably go in? Yes. So that's I'm gonna just take it and live with it. That's fine. Right. But I know Hawkins and Williams at least gonna make the smart decision, whether it's a shot or a pass. So either way, Texas Tech, big win at home, first conference home win of the season against Arizona, winning 70-54. One thing I told y'all before we started this podcast, though, is ESPN is starting to take some notice about some guys on the Red Raiders. So ESPN had a top 50 list of players before the season started. And recently, ESPN's Jeff Borzello and Myron Metcalf revisited that top 50 list and revamped the top 50 list. Say, okay, well, all right, now that we're halfway through the season, who should be considered one of the top 50 players in the country? I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm more surprised the national media is taking notice that 29th on this list is Darian Williams, and 25th on this list is JT Toppin. Two Texas Tech Red Raiders considered top 50 in the country, right? And now I consider top 30 in the country. Two Texas Tech players considered top 30 in the entire country. And as far as in the conference, as I kind of scroll down here, we have Iowa State with two guys, Kansas with Hunter Dickinson, which, of course, and that's it. So in the entire conference, there's only three players. Oh, wait, sorry. Javon Small from West Virginia is also on here. So in the entire conference, only four players that are considered better than our two guys right there. That is big that the national media is taking notice of those two guys. And those are two guys that I think are future NBA players. So that, speaks for itself, Jeremy.
Oh, yeah. And I think with JT Toppin, you expected that. A lot of hype, a lot of effort to get him to come to Texas Tech. But Darian Williams, a player like last season, we saw how special he was in a lot of games, especially against the Kansas game where he went perfect, right? And that was like wow. And against Kansas, especially. But to be 29th is surprising to me. Like, I feel like the disparity between JT Toppin doing what he does and Darian Williams, not that Darian Williams is bad by any means, but when Toppin's doing his thing, I'm like, dang, like we do not have a player as good as Toppin on the team. But just 4 spots below Darian Williams. And it's impressive. And it's good to see, first of all, the flowers being handed to our guys. Second of all, to be considered so prestigious in the conference. Like there's only 4 guys ahead. And it's like 4, like okay, well, yeah, obviously, I guess, whatever. Hunter Dickinson, like go get a job. But it's like
the 4 guys ahead of them are all 4 of them are like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay, whatever. But then after them, it's us, baby. Yeah. So it feels good. It feels good. And Darian Williams, especially because of JT Toppin again, the prestige followed him. Darian Williams has worked his butt off to get where he is. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah, one note you mentioned a little bit before about Toppin and Williams. I would argue that Toppin is still our best player on the team, but Darian Williams might be our most important, which is different. Like they're not always the same thing. And so I definitely, to your point, Darian Williams definitely earned every bit of piece to be on here, and the stats are showing. Joe, what do you think about those two guys being top 30 in the country?
Yeah, kind of to Jeremy's point. We kind of knew what we were getting with Toppin here. He did the whole NBA process, and we got him to come back to school. He's a very young kid. He's a sophomore here, and Darian Williams is just a junior. So JT Toppin was kind of all expected. The Darian Williams, I think, is if you're looking like all around game and what he brings to the table, size, athleticism, his prowess on the court. I think that those are, intangibles that, NBA execs look for, that size and being able to play multiple positions as far as from the 2 to the 4. So I think he's a good player. I think he arguably could be the, best all around player that Tech has right now. I think JT Toppin is the best player, but if you're looking at all the pieces of what they do on the team itself, I think that Darian Williams is probably the most valuable player that we have on this roster.
Yeah, and that's again very high praise to say so. Say so there. So one other thing, and I didn't mention this before, but I'm mentioning it now. So Texas Tech, especially after our loss to UCF, right? So this was a team that was projected to be in the NCAA tournament beginning of the year. But after that loss to UCF, we officially became a bubble team, right? Officially became a team that everybody's like, will they actually make the tournament? The Iowa State game obviously didn't hurt us, but it didn't help because we didn't get the win. At the end of the day, you got to get the win. Like, we can put all the semantics and say, oh, well, they came close. Oh, they were the number 3 team in the country, now number 2. Oh, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, when it comes March and they're doing the selection, did you win or not? And so it didn't help, right? So coming into the game against Arizona, Joe Lunardi actually had Texas Tech as a 10 seed, one of the last 4 buys in the tournament, which is pretty insane, right? The fact that we thought that this was a team that was going to be a dark horse contender for the conference is now fighting and clawing for a 10 seed. But to show how big that game was, Joe Lunardi has not come out with a new bracket since the bracket he came out before with was released on Friday. He has not come out with a new bracket yet. However, I did go to On 3. On 3 is the only one at this moment, recording this Sunday night. On 3 is the only one that has come out with a new bracket since Saturday's array of games. And they actually moved Texas Tech up to a 7 seed. Now, and I saw a few analysts on Twitter talking about how big this win was to take Tech off the bubble, or maybe not necessarily off the bubble entirely, but scoot us up a little bit further where we're a little comfortably in. I saw somebody else kind of write an article as far as the teams that were in the tournament beforehand that are now in the bubble and level of hesitancy and worry. And Texas Tech was listed as no worry at all. I'm not worried about them guys. Those guys, I saw what they did. I saw what they can do. They will be fine. Right. And so I think that is, you're giving confidence to your fan base who saw you lose to UCF and Iowa State. You're giving confidence to people that expect you to be good. Now let's build off of that confidence and move forward. So yeah, I mean, Joe, I'll ask you this: any worry at all? Now that you've seen Tech, though we lost UCF, though we lost Iowa State, but beating Arizona, is there any worry about us in the tournament whatsoever?
Zero worry there. I don't have any worry there. Like I said, the body of work is kind of showing for itself, especially, easily could have beat Iowa State, could be 5-1 in the conference right now. And we did play them tough. And, if one free throw falls in, we're having a totally different conversation. We're probably talking about a 3 to 5 seed at this point in time where we sit right now. So I think where we're at, like I said, those losses, may have done something for this basketball team as a whole, which is further going to, propel us into the rest of the Big 12. But I have zero worry about this team making the tournament later on in March.
3 to 5 seed. We still lost to UCF and St. Joe's. I wouldn't go that far. But to your point, who knows? I mean, actually, to be fair, who knows? All of our losses, I will say this. So Texas Tech has lost 4 games this year. 1 point loss to St. Joe's on a buzzer beater that Darren Williams, we've seen him make. It was unfortunate. We also had that 1 point loss to Iowa State, same scenario. 5-point loss to A&M in a game we were very much in. An A&M team that now is top 10 in the country still. Quick aside, I thought it hilarious that Buzz Williams was like, wait, this is the best season we've ever had? Like, he was like, oh, that's awesome. And in his head, he's like, man, y'all suck. This program stinks. This is the best I'll ever have. Yeah. Lord Jesus, get better. That was what he was thinking in the back of his mind. I saw that face. Anyways, and so an A&M team that ends up being top 5, and you were right there. And then again, Iowa State, West Virginia was able to reap the joy of beating Iowa State when they were second ranked this weekend. Unfortunately, the joy that was stolen from us. But all 4 losses, you're right in there all 4 times. So not necessarily play this moral victory aspect of it, but a few things bounce your way, and who knows, maybe you're looking at 17-0 as opposed to 13-4, right? So, as we switch over and talk about it, so we're not gonna have an episode this week, so we're gonna talk about both games, Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. So starting off Cincinnati, right? So Cincinnati was a team that was ranked at one point, and recently they've fallen a little bit. They've lost 4 out of their last 6 games, including games to teams that we recently beat, Kansas State and Arizona. They've also lost to Baylor, a team that was ranked until they lost to TCU just earlier Sunday, and then they just get beat and only score 40 points against Kansas, right? Now, since losing 4 straight, they have gone back-to-back wins against Colorado and Arizona State. Colorado and Arizona State also may be 2 of the, let's just say they're not making the tournament as we stand right now, right? So what can we expect, Jeremy, from this Texas Tech Cincinnati game? What are you looking forward to this one?
Not much. Texas Tech and Cincinnati are on different trajectories, right? And so kind of a disappointing non-con for Texas Tech. Cincinnati having a heck of a non-con where people are starting to say, maybe Cincinnati's got the grit to really make a run in the Big 12. And it was after that win against Dayton, especially when Dayton was ranked. Cincinnati, welcome to the show, right? It's definitely a big – I mean, everybody's talking about this is a tournament team, blah, 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 and it very much looked the part. But opening up against Kansas State, it just got worse from there, right? So the fact that they won against Colorado, the fact that they won against Arizona State, not impressed by that, right? Even they were close games. And the problem is that if I remember correctly, last year Cincinnati did hand it to us at home by behind the name of a man by name Lukosius. It was terrible. But I think that there's a lot more here to this team than there was last year. I think that Cincinnati had a little bit more cohesiveness last season. I think that they've been punched a lot in the mouth in the Big 12 by better teams. And not that it's going to be a blowout, but I do think that Texas Tech, just especially against Arizona, even though we're going on the road, like I do think Texas Tech's win against Kansas State gives me a lot of energy to take on Cincinnati in Ohio. Like there's no doubt in my mind that this team is ready to play on the road with the way that they handled Kansas State, right? If it was, if we didn't have the 5-minute blackout of Kansas State, it was only against Arizona, then I'm like, yeah, we play better at home. But Joe and I talked about it, like beating Kansas State on the road is still a Big 12 win on the road. And stuff like that's hard to do. And so I'm confident this team's got the DNA, that our team has the DNA and now the experience. And that was when JT Toppin was already favoring his ankle and didn't get a lot of playing time. So I have a lot of excitement for this game. I have a lot of excitement. I think Cincinnati will think they got a lot of momentum going into this, but Colorado, Arizona State, I'll take the team that won against Kansas State and Arizona, the better of the Arizona schools, even when it's in Ohio. Now, it'll still be close. It's no blowout, but I think that it's going to be more comfortable than the Kansas State game.
Wow. Well, Joe, ESPN Analytics does not agree with Jeremy. The line right now has not been set. However, ESPN Analytics only gives Texas Tech a 47.3% chance of winning this game. Joe, what are your thoughts as we think about this game?
Just like the last year one. I mean, the teams are different. Obviously, just rosters alone. And then I think that was the start of the flu bug that was going through the basketball team last year. We had a bunch of guys sick in that game. I think Warren Washington had the flu, or he was playing through some stuff. And then Pop Isaacs had also the flu, or he was coming off of that as well. So just, some of the biggest pieces for this Texas Tech basketball team was ill. Not making any excuses, because we were still in that game despite all of that stuff. But, just another tough road test. Cincinnati, they've had some struggles, after starting off so hot. Dark horse team to potentially make a run in the Big 12 and then possibly in the tournament. A lot of returning people there, but it's their rotations is starting to get a little bit smaller, down to closer to 6 or 7 guys, and that's not going to bode well for you in a Big 12 conference where you need 8 capable bodies, to go through that gauntlet of what's going on. So I think it's going to be a tough test for this team, just like, the trip to Manhattan was. But I think this is a game that we should come out victorious for sure.
So Cincinnati, few players on that team. Starting off with their leading scorer, or one of the leading scorers, Dan Skillings, junior out of Blackwood, New Jersey. In a world of transfer portal, he's actually been here all 3 years. Skillings right now averaging 12.4 points per game. Nice wing for them, 4 rebounds, really getting into it. Really, they're do everything type of player there, as he kind of leans a little bit more into that star role. Another big player for the Bearcats here is a guy by the name of Simus Lukosius, one of Jeremy's people. 12.4 points a game. I will say, though, he big size, big player, big guard, but doesn't do the things that a guy his size should do. Not a big rebounder, not really going to get down and dirty, going to be a little bit more on the perimeter, a little bit more on the mid-block. And so it'll be, so I do think, and he's a guy that has good size, but kind of gets bullied sometimes. But he'll get the ball in the basket. He's going to get the ball in the basket. He's going to be a guy that's a little bit more of a focal point to Cincinnati's offense. But I think one thing to note about this team is they have 4 guys that score over 10 points a game. So they don't have a star point. I just mentioned Skillix and Lukosius, but they don't have just a guy to kick it off to. Dylan Mitchell is another guy. Funny enough, he's technically smaller than Lukosius, but plays a lot bigger, averages almost 7 rebounds, very athletic. It's going to be a guy that also averages almost a block a game, so he's going to be there altering shots as well. And then last but not least is a guy by the name, one of my favorite names in the entire Big 12, Jizzle James, averaging 10 points a game, 4 assists a game, really their main point guard there. So Jeremy, any of these guys or any guys that I didn't mention that kind of gives you a little pause or worry?
I was didn't want to bring up Jizzle James, but you brought him up. You brought up the Jizzle.
Young Jizz.
No, the Jizz. Goddamn. Okay. I think the only people that give me pause on this team, I remember last year, Lukosius was.
Listen, Jizz gives me a lot of pause.
I'll tell you what. Last year he got 7 on us, so as long as we keep him below that.
You saying Jizzle got 7 on him?
He got yeah. So last year the big issue wasn't necessarily, first of all, the big issue is no defense, right? We ain't playing no defense. But the biggest issue is not having a big. Darian Williams was your best, was like he got the most rebounds, I think followed by Robert Jennings. And it's like like 2 guys that really, effort rebounding, but not really by size. They got out rebounded all night. So having the presence now of JT Toppin and Federico changes the dynamic of the game, because there's familiar faces for us, for Cincinnati. Cincinnati's have face off against, okay, well, they got 2 big guys now who like to go up and get the rebound. Like Texas Tech is doing a really good job rebounding this season, and in the most important fashion, doing much better defensively. Oh my God, defensively, closing space, creating frustration and pressure on opposing offenses. Like last season, it felt like Cincinnati was just shooting out of their minds. They could get whatever shot that they wanted, and it was really frustrating when you had to listen to Lukosius, right? James, but they didn't want to say Jizzle. And so it's just like, oh God, that was frustrating. The Cincinnati team doesn't bother me. What bothered me was lack of rebounding. And now that we got that under control, that's what's really giving me confidence. Nothing else, man. The fact that we can start rebounding the ball more aggressively, oh my God, night and day.
What about you, Joe? What gives you anything about any of these players or anything to look out for there?
Lukosius was the one who really hurt us last year. Him and Dan Skillings. Lukosius had 16 points, 4 of 7 from the 3-point line, and then Dan Skillings, those garbage minutes, or not garbage minutes, but he was doing the dirty work down below. His 7 rebounds off of the bench, played 28 minutes and scored 14 points. Those 2 guys kind of propelled this Cincinnati team to beat a number 15 ranked Texas Tech team last year, 75-72 here. So on their, first trip to the Lubbock area. But to Jeremy's point, we addressed a lot of these needs in the offseason with a JT Toppin, with like a Kevin Overton, F2 Federico as far as the rebounding goes. And I think we're just better athletically on the defensive perimeter than we were last year. So I would expect us to cut back on some of those 3 points, those open 3-point looks that they were getting last year down. And this defense, like we've been talking about this entire episode, this defense has just been on a different level the last few games.
All right, so guys, a little bit about Cincinnati. Cincinnati right now, on that on-3 bracketology, they do have Cincinnati as a 10 seed, one of the last buys in the tournament. So Cincinnati's squarely on the bubble. They know they need to make some things shake. Last year was the first time Texas Tech and Cincinnati ever played in basketball, so Cincinnati has the 1-0 lead in this series. Texas Tech is going to try to tie it up here. Something about Cincinnati, 7th ranked defense in KenPom on the entire country, but 132nd offensively. So this is definitely a team that prides themselves a little bit more on the defensive side than the offensive side. So definitely things to look out there. On the non-nerd statistics, Cincinnati right now, best in the conference in opponent field goal percentage. Their opponent's only shooting 27 points per game, which is a big stat to know when it comes to Texas Tech, a team that likes to shoot the three, going up against the best 3-point defense in the conference, a third best overall field goal defense in the conference, the team shooting less than 39% from the field, also second best defense for points per game in the conference, only giving up a little under 61 points per game. So, Joe, give me your key to the game and your prediction.
Key to the game. My key to the games have been the same, the last couple of weeks, and the last couple of games, and it's really hard for me to just go away from that. Fundamentally, you just have to take care of the ball, keep the turnovers down, make free throws, just all the things that you could control. I know it's not like a very, glamorous answer, but, just make it simple. You run your tempo, you run your tempo, do what you need to do. And, we've been taking care of business on the road this season, for those said reasons. So just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Board up, play defense, just the fundamentals of basketball. And as far as prediction wise, give me Texas Tech 74-68.
74-68. All right, there you go, Joe. Jeremy, you said that this was going to be a bigger win than when we beat K-State. Give me your key, and are you going to keep your word?
Am I going to keep my word? So, Joe's right, especially my thing is, I think last time I said JT Toppin, like that's the key. Not really my key this time because I'm actually really excited about Federico stepping into it. And you're very apt to pull up the 3-point shooting. I do wonder versus 3-point defense. I do wonder how McCaslin's going to kind of address that. If he's going to go at it with like let's prove it. Like let's make Cincinnati prove it. Or if he's going to try to draw up a lot more, driving to the basket, kind of let's draw in Cincinnati with like, if they're going to play hard-nosed defense, let's draw them in some fouls. Let's get them in foul trouble. Right. That's what Chris Beard used to do a lot against teams with good defenses. Just challenged them, hey, if you want to be aggressive, we're going to get you in trouble. And I don't hate that. So I think that a key to the game for me is just, recognizing the weak spot. Like Cincinnati may be a really good defensive team, but that doesn't mean you can't beat them. They're getting beat frequently lately. So let's figure out what that recipe is and go after it. And I do think this will be a bigger win than Kansas State because we got JT Toppin. So we got a little more fluidity in the offense. My prediction's probably going to be good guys 68, Cincinnati like 55, 54.
Oh, look at you two. 13-point win for Texas Tech over Cincinnati. Look at you two. All righty. So I'm going to choose it. The key for this game to me is that we got to make our open shots, right? Cincinnati does have a stout defense. They're going to make sure that they're going to make sure that we tough for us to score. And so we're going to have to make sure that we make the open shots when available, right? We can't do a lot of the stuff that we have done the last couple of games, even against Arizona, where we were just missing the shots that they gave us. Cincinnati's going to give us too many shots. We got to make them. So we got to make an open shot. That's my key. I am not as optimistic as the two of you. It's not necessarily because I'm down on Tech or anything like that. It's a road game in the Big 12. Road games are not easy. Cincinnati's not a bad team. This is a team that on the road, traveling to Ohio, I think we're going to be pretty frustrated. I've actually gone back and forth on my prediction on this one. I do think it's going to be close, but I think we're going to be pretty frustrated in this game by some of the stuff that Cincinnati is going to be able to get away with. And you know, I don't really feel great about what we're going to have here. Gone back and forth. I think it's going to be a 2-point game. I think it's going to be a 2-point game.
So you're saying Darian's shot win?
I'm going with the Texas Tech victory. I'm going with us to close it out here because I think we have more. We have guys to go to. There's on Cincinnati's side. I think we have 4 players on Tech that are better than every player that Cincinnati has. Right. I think if Christian Anderson transferred to Cincinnati right now, he'd be their best player. That's the reason why I'm choosing Tech. I think at the end of it, when in a game that's going to be 64-62, Darian Williams or Chance McMillan is going to make the shot that Cincinnati's not going to be able to make in the other way. But I am not necessarily optimistic that Texas Tech's going to have the same run we had against Arizona. Right? This is going to be a tough game on the road, midweek. Hopefully the Fifth Third Arena is not going to be as packed because it's a midweek game. But, it's not going to be easy. I definitely don't think it's going to be easy. So, yeah, 2-point win by Tech, but I don't feel great about it. I do think it's going to be a close game. So as we look into it and close this out here, like I mentioned, we're not going to have necessarily another episode this week. So we play Oklahoma State right after that. So win or lose, it always does feel good to play arguably the worst team in the conference. And so that helps. That helps. Shout out to the Cowboys. And actually that's not fair. They're not the worst team in the conference. Colorado and Kansas State do exist. So, but they're still bad. They're still not great. They have a new head coach this year. They're still going through some growing pains, the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Joe, what are your thoughts as we go against this Cowboys team that has also lost 4 of their last 6, but did just pull off a good win against it's against Colorado, so I don't know if it was a good win, but it was a win recently. What do you think there?
Not that worry level is just kind of like where my worry level is about where we're going to be, if we're going to make the tournament or not. I mean, yeah, they have some bright spots there, but they've been, in the shadows and the clouds pretty much all season long. And I don't think that, us playing them is going to change that. I think we kind of win that game handily just because, we're better in the story. We're just better than they are.
Yeah, playing Oklahoma State after a tough game is always a good recipe. Arizona has Oklahoma State this weekend, so that'll be good for them to really, kick another team while they're down a little bit. So that helps. BYU, when they lost to TCU, they were able to lick their wounds by just beating up on Oklahoma State. Right? That helps. I think Oklahoma State should be the team that everybody plays. I think we should have played Oklahoma State after we lost to Iowa State. Right? Really make you feel better about yourself. Utah, same thing. Utah lost to Iowa State, so they were like, I guess we get to beat Oklahoma State. That helps. Jeremy, what do you think about that game?
Listen, ain't nobody showing up to the Gallagher Arena, and neither is their basketball team. This team is poopy. Yes, they beat Kansas State. Yes, they beat Colorado, but both of those teams have shown to be really bad. I don't know, I'm trying to think of something good to say. It's just a new year for Oklahoma State. It really is. There's some familiar face. They got a lot of rebuilding to do. I do feel bad, and we've always talked about how Mike Boynton was a really great coach. I feel bad because I'm like, dang, if Mike Boynton was coaching his team, would it be like this or would it be different? Who knows? We can't say it because he ain't there. So this is a game that, no matter what happens against Cincinnati, will be good to kind of set up for because we play Houston. No, we play TCU and then we play Houston. So it'll be a nice setup for a TCU team. I think we're still trying to get a read on.
Yeah, I don't know how many Cowboy fans would agree with you that Mike Boynton's a good coach. Though as we talked about a long time, Jeremy, we liked him. I liked him. But it's just he definitely won out his welcome there. And so in the new era, you're right. They are rebuilding. They do have some players that are still there working through. Our boy Robert Jennings is still there. Which I feel like Robert Jennings is the new Alan Bowman, that every year he's just like, oh, yeah, that's right. He is it's not even his last year. He's a junior. I was like, he has to be a sixth-year senior by now. Like, no, he's a junior. He's still coming off the bench, so all power to him. But some of the other guys there that are working their way. Abu Usman started out his career at UNT in North Texas on the DFW. Last year at Xavier, actually had a really good last year at Xavier had a nice season as a role player, and now getting back into Big 12 ball here at Oklahoma State, leading the Cowboys with almost 13 points and 6 rebounds. Definitely a big boy that we're going to have to worry about. Seeing a matchup between him and Toppin is going to be interesting. Because I mentioned before how Toppin has been bullied a little bit this year. Usman's the type of guy that's going to try to play bully ball with Toppin and see what he can do. But you know what? You ain't going to be able to play bully ball against Federico. So F2 is going to have a fun game here against Usman. Marcellus Avery, their number 2 scorer, averaging about 12 points a game, right? And he's another guy that transferred from UCF. So we did get a chance to see him last year as he came off the bench. This year, a bigger role with the Cowboys. But that kind of tells you, I mean, you got a guy like Avery that came off the bench in UCF last year. Now, mind you, UCF's not really playing too great this year. But that's just the level of talent that Oklahoma State is working with. They are really just trying to build a new team in this landscape. And it's interesting because I think when we did the same thing, right, with McCaslin last year, it was hey, McCaslin, nice for you to come here, but we need you to win. We ain't got no time for no rebuild. Steve Lutz is actually giving some grace. I feel like Steve Lutz, I would argue, is a lot like when Krista Gerlich first came to Tech, right? Like, we've been bad for a bit, so we're gonna give you some time. So Steve Lutz is working with that time, but we'll see what he can do there. But those are really his top 2 guys over there. So all that being said, Joe, give me your key to that game and your prediction.
Key to that game is just do what you're supposed to do. It's Oklahoma State. You have them at home, 2:00 tip. It's going to be loud in the USA. Just do what you have to do. There's nothing more you have to do or special to do to beat an Oklahoma State basketball team. Show up, and that's it. Prediction wise, I don't know, 80-40. I don't, some kind of epic beatdown. Give me like 76-54. It's something to those numbers, but I don't just
some disrespectful. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. ESPN agrees with you, though, by the way, Joe. ESPN Analytics gives Texas Tech a 93.3% chance of winning this game. So don't fudge it up. Jeremy, what is your key in your prediction?
Yeah, the key is just don't go to sleep, right? Don't just think that, hey, Oklahoma State's garbage, so we're going to kind of goof around. Like, it's got to be one of those games that, yes, you can expect to win, but you got to play like you're not going to win. It's a really good opportunity to hone in on the fundamentals, as we've talked about plenty. Where if you're going to get to the free throw line, please make it. You limit the turnovers, make your free throws, get out of there with a disrespectful victory. I think something like 85-66 would be really nice. Thank you for coming out, Oklahoma State. Go back to Stillwater. See ya. Stop stealing our stuff.
Xerox you.
So my key to this game is allow Jack Francis to play. That's my key. My key is let Jack Francis play. All right? Go in that entire game and say, man, I got to give my boy Jackson some burn. That boy averages 0.3 points and 0.3 rebounds a game. He's played 5 or 7 games this year. give him an 8th. Let my boy Jack Francis play. That is what I want. That is the key. That is make sure he gets in the game. The only way to make sure to do that is by blowing them the F out. Texas Tech this year, they had played Utah, beat Utah 93-65 on the road. This is a home game against a worse team. I expect something disrespectful. All right. I expect something pretty disrespectful. I want us to go out there and beat them like they stole something. So I'm going to go, that game against Utah was 93-65. I'm going to say 83-55. 10 points off both of them, So I was right. All full of originality here. Before we get out of here, so real quick, I'm crying on the inside, but I know the majority of Red Raider Nation is not, as the Kansas City Chiefs made it to their 7th straight AFC Championship game. Pat Mahomes just continuing to add on to his legacy, and he's going to have the opportunity to beat the Buffalo Bills. Hopefully, I pray he does beat the Buffalo Bills because I'm not a huge fan of Josh Allen in that group there. And that would give him the opportunity. I mean, the Chiefs right now are standing on the doorstep of history. They might be the first team ever to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. Hell, in college football, only one team ever won 3 championships in a row. Joe, Jeremy, can y'all name that team that has won 3 championships in a row? Oh. Back in the 30s, maybe the 40s, Minnesota won 3 championships in a row. Minnesota. Who'd have thunk? Not Ohio State, not Notre Dame, not Miami, Alabama. No, the Gophers. That's right. Won 3 championships in a row. So in football, it's the only time it's happened on that level of stage. It's never happened in the Super Bowl. Chiefs have an opportunity to do something. On the other side of it, and the NFC side, if you're thinking, oh, there's nobody to root for, if you're a Cowboys fan, and you're like, we have 2 of our rivals in there. Maybe you hate the Eagles more. See, I don't know. Just let you know, the Eagles have Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator, former Red Raider that we all know. Anthony Lynn as running backs coach. What's that?
The Commanders have.
You hate him, Joe?
No,
I meant Commanders. Did I say Eagles?
Yes.
Oh, my bad. My bad. Commanders have Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator. They have Anthony Lynn, former Red Raider, as running backs coach, and they have Tyler Owens on their team. He plays. Special teams, runs up, runs down. Good job, guys. High fives. All right, hey, beat a key high fiver is important. But he's on the team. He gets a ring if they win a championship. So if you're questioning who you need to root for on championship weekend, this upcoming weekend, Chiefs, obviously, but Commies, the Commanders, they have a lot of Texas Tech influence on that team. Joe, anything else you want to say to the people?
No, I have nothing. Just getting ready to finish packing for my trip to the ATL for the first time. And yeah, nothing else. Just heading out. Nothing else to report on my end.
Joe, not Joe, Jeremy, you have anything else for you to say to the people?
No, man. Super excited to see how the rest of the season plays out. Yeah, take care of business. Got a big one coming up on the in the fog of the horizon.
In the fog of the horizon. I obviously need to go to sleep because I'm getting the Eagles and Commanders mixed up. I'm getting Joe and Jeremy mixed up. It's a whole thing. I didn't get a chance to talk about the Lady Raiders in this episode because they've given us no reason to talk about them as they lose another game, as everything about the coaching staff is starting to come into question. But I said they lose another game talking about Iowa State. They did. I will say this. Iowa State, here's the thing about the Lady Raiders. Iowa State broke a record. They hadn't missed a game with missing. They hadn't had a game where they hadn't made a 3-point basket in 30 years. It's an incredible feat. We lost that game, so that's kind of embarrassing. Tech did double back and win on Saturday. So there's that. Texas Tech as a organization won a lot this Saturday. Won men's basketball, Chiefs won, and Lady Raiders won, beating BYU. So there is that. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, how good is BYU, right? BYU must be awful. And, well, they are. They're pretty bad, too. But, you got to beat the bad teams to get somewhere, right? So there's that. So yeah, like I mentioned also before, no episode this week. So we will, by the time we're back, we're going to talk about, hopefully, fingers crossed, 2 Texas Tech victories against Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. By God, you got to at least beat Oklahoma State. I mean, that should be a given. So, but definitely. So while we take a break off, everyone stay warm. It's going to be cold. Joe's going to be in Atlanta. Because I'm being punished by God a little bit, I'll be in Minnesota, where the high is going to be -3. So y'all pray for my black self. With that being said, for the Red expert that is Joe Lopez and the people chanted to Jeremy Gillen, this is your boy Albie Short, and you've been listening to the Tortillas and Takes podcast, part of the 1012 network. As always, stay wrecked, people.